So, every member of the Seven has a crazy story and most of them are dead in the comics, and today we're gonna have a look at their stories in comics and what happened to them. So let's start with Homelander himself. So, the public story released by Vought American is that the Homelander is an alien who dropped down to Earth as a baby and was raised by parents in a small town. In reality, Homelander was part of a series of twisted experiments to create super soldiers that Vought could market as superheroes to the public. His mother was a mentally disabled woman who died giving birth to him, and he became one of 7 children grown by the company and given copious amounts of Compound V while in the womb. So, Compound V was a powerful chemical developed by Nazi scientists to give humans incredible superpowers, but with a litany of side effects depending on the physiological makeup of the person and the amount used. As a result, Homelander gained incredible power, but his upbringing in a paramilitary science lab, such as being tied to a nuclear bomb to keep his aggressiveness under control, and exposure to experimental drugs has caused him to grow up with low moral standards and little sanity. It's later revealed that Homelander was created from the DNA of Stormfront, whereas many others were created by reusing old DNA from older soups to create new and improved versions of the source material, making Homelander a partial clone of Stormfront, whose past as a Nazi officer might contribute to Homelander's disturbing nature. In addition to being a partial clone, unbeknownst to Homelander, his DNA was used to create a stronger, more powerful, and even more disturbing clone to watch over him and take him out if he were to ever go off the rails. As the Homelander began his superhero career with the rest of the Seven, it became clear that their extreme power and lack of morals would often make disasters worse. Despite starting out optimistic and genuinely wanting to do good, Homelander found himself inadvertently causing destruction and death everywhere he went. Homelander and the Seven found themselves protected from the consequences of their actions by Vought America, who used their lucrative government connections, expensive legal teams, and powerful PR firms to cover up or sanitize their actions. Being immune to all forms of damage, Homelander also grew immune to his own humanity, and helping people was no longer a priority. He now became obsessed with hedonism, becoming the living antithesis of what a superhero should be, and his actions grew more depraved, violent, and cruel by the day. As the story progressed, Homelander was terrified to find an anonymous source who began blackmailing him with photos of various horrific acts he apparently took part in. He was especially distraught to realize he had no memory of committing any of these atrocities. This made him even crueler, and slowly but surely the Homelander went from a selfish hedonist to a full-blown violent murderer and torturer. The Homelander, emboldened by his growing insanity and sadism, began toying with the idea of a superhero uprising where he and his fellow false heroes could rise up and destroy all the world governments, effectively taking over the world. So Homelander would eventually put his dreams of an uprising into action, and he and his fellow false heroes would launch a full-scale attack on the White House, killing any other heroes who refused to join them. During the final confrontation with Billy Butcher after murdering the president, Homelander reveals that he has no memory of raping Becky or murdering the family in Butcher's photographs. The two were then confronted by Black Noir, who revealed to their horror that he was actually Homelander's clone, created by Vought America to destroy him if he ever went out of line. Unfortunately, Black Noir was even crueler and more vile than Homelander, and was actually the one responsible for the atrocities Homelander saw in the photographs. Distraught by the revelation that he hadn't committed any of the crimes in Butcher's photos, he becomes horrified at everything he had just done, as he thinks he'd have never done any of those crimes, such as the taking over of the White House, if he didn't believe that he did the crimes seen in those photos. Realizing that he has nothing left to lose, he tries to kill Black Noir, only for the latter to kill him instead. Noir ripped Homelander's body into pieces, but before dying, Homelander managed to severely injure Black Noir, weakening him enough for Billy Butcher and the US military to kill him, avenging Butcher's wife and ending Black Noir's rampage. Moving on, we have Jack from Jupiter. So, Vought American presents Jack from Jupiter as an alien hero to the world, but he's simply an enhanced human created by Vought. Like the Seven's other members, Jack possesses enhanced strength and durability, but he also has invulnerability brought on by saying the magic word Carpo. Despite his status as a long-time member of the world's most successful super team, his lack of the star appeal and major powers means he is seen as fairly unimportant to his corporate sponsors, even more so than the Deep. His teammates likewise see him as unimportant, as they are as self-absorbed as he is. Even the newer recruit A-Train, who Jack took under his wing to some extent, has little attachment to him and showed little sympathy when Jack met with misfortune. While investigating the murder of a transgender prostitute, Huey and Butcher make their way to Dr. Peculiar's office and find records of Jack's depraved sexual behavior. Eventually, footage of Jack's deviant side is leaked to the news, and a panicking Jack grows more and more anxious as he wants Homelander to sort out who is blackmailing him. All his teammates express little concern for his troubled state. Jack ends up getting into an argument with the Deep, who backhands him across the room. Bleeding from the attack, Jack activates his invulnerability field and challenges the Deep to a fight. However, Homelander steps in and manages to break the pair up. The Seven later confront the boys on a rooftop. There, Butcher denies sending out the information, so Homelander analyzes Butcher and confirms he isn't lying. As a result, an enraged Jack panics further at the revelation when Homelander refuses to continue searching for an answer. Later, Butcher's dog Terror is found dead, and it is assumed by the boys that Jack killed him. All the boys are sad and angry after Terror's death, but Butcher is the first one to take action. Butcher searches for Jack and tracks Jack to a back room, shoves him against a wall, holds his throat closed, and repeatedly stabs him in the stomach while questioning, "Why'd you kill me, dog, Jack?" He prevented Jack from saying anything by choking him so that he won't be able to activate his invulnerability, and as a result, Jack is killed by Butcher in a very painful manner. Mr. Marathon. So, Mr. Marathon was a member of the Seven, and not much of his past is known. During the 9/11 crisis, Jack from Jupiter tried to flee, but Marathon convinced him to stay. While carrying Mr. Marathon due to his inability to fly, Homelander wanted to abandon the mission, but Marathon persuaded him to continue by pointing out that Vought American would fire them if they left. Homelander and Mr. Marathon planned to rescue the passengers, but the attempt was botched by Homelander's ego. His carelessness led to the death of an innocent passenger, and the soup burst the panicked civilians' eardrums with his supersonic voice. Homelander wanted to abandon the plane entirely, but the speedster begged him to try a last-minute plan. Homelander, while carrying Mr. Marathon on his back, collides with the plane in hopes of changing its trajectory, but Mr. Marathon was instead decapitated on impact, and the plane crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge. The Seven's failure and Mr. Marathon's gruesome death were covered up, and he was quickly replaced by A-Train. Moving on to A-Train. So, in the comic series, A-Train is a speedster and an ally to Homelander, but is youthfully reckless and arrogant. He was recruited by the Seven after leaving the teenager-based superhero group called Teenage Kicks as a replacement for Mr. Marathon, the group's original speedster who was killed on 9/11 when the Seven botched a plane rescue. He first appears after accidentally killing Huey Campbell's girlfriend Robin Mulwiney while chasing a criminal, which causes Huey to join the boys to get revenge. Like most heroes, A-Train is self-centered and mostly interested in fame, fortune, and publicity rather than helping others. In fact, he displays a remarkable lack of empathy, possibly even to the point of sociopathy. As a member of the Seven, he is kept in check by Homelander. In addition, A-Train is convinced by the Seven to laugh off the incident where he killed Robin. Later, when Starlight joins the Seven, A-Train, along with Homelander and Black Noir, force her to give them sexual favor in exchange for staying in the Seven. When A-Train and Starlight are tasked with cleaning an undead Lamplighter, he attempts to rape Starlight a second time, but is temporarily blinded in one eye. Due to his immaturity, A-Train is not respected by the rest of the Seven, with his only real friend being Jack from Jupiter, whom A-Train later sides against when Jack's reputation is ruined. Later, as the story progresses, when Homelander starts to take his plans into motion, A-Train decides to stay low but is kidnapped by Billy Butcher. Billy Butcher presents him to Huey and tells him to complete his revenge by killing A-Train, but Huey refuses to kill him. However, when Billy Butcher tells Huey what A-Train did with Starlight and that he doesn't regret anything, he is killed by Huey for Robin's death and assaulting Starlight. Next, we got Lamplighter. So, the Lamplighter is one of the original members of the Seven. He possesses a torch that grants him pyrokinesis, allowing him to harness nearby fire and blast flames in any direction, essentially making him a walking inferno. The torch also grants him the ability of flight, allowing him to cover vast distances and survive atmospheric damage in high-velocity flight. Like most of the superheroes in this world, Lamplighter was a very entitled person who didn't like being told what to do. In the comics, it is revealed that the Seven had a run-in with the boys in the past, where the boys used stolen information to blackmail them. But Lamplighter didn't want to back down from these humans. However, Homelander ordered the Seven not to retaliate, but when they are returning to their base, Lamplighter uses his powers to blind his teammates and go seek revenge. He does not even have that many moral reservations, as after going rogue from the rest of the Seven, he murders Mallory's grandchildren on purpose, showing how evil a super he really is. Killing Mallory's grandchildren nearly started a war between the two groups, but Homelander managed to stop it because even though Homelander is evil, he does recognize the threat the boys pose, so he recommends a truce. As a result, after he killed Mallory's grandchildren, he was given up by the rest of his team to prevent a full-scale war between the Seven and the CIA. The Lamplighter was beaten near to death by the Frenchman and the female before being shot in the head by Mallory. He was later revived by Vought American, which was possible thanks to the compound V in Lamplighter's system. Despite being resurrected, Lamplighter retained no higher brain function, remaining confined in a room on the Seven's base, mentally incapacitated. Moving on, we have got Queen Maeve. So, like the other members of the Seven, she was experimented on with Compound V while in the womb, and therefore developed potent abilities such as flight, near invulnerability, and super strength. Marketed by Vought American as a brave feminist warrior hailing from the mythical otherworld to fight crime in the modern world, Maeve is actually an empty and apathetic shell of her former self, having been long since disillusioned by the cruel reality of superheroics. After the Seven's botched rescue of a passenger plane on 9/11, Maeve turned into a nihilistic alcoholic. She does not seem to show any interest in real-world events, instead spending her time gazing out the window, sipping martinis, and occasionally having sex with several bodybuilders at a time. While mostly cold towards the new recruit, she does show some sympathy for Starlight. Maeve has been in a relationship with several prominent heroes, such as Stormfront, although she cheated on him with another hero and even had a child, and was even in a relationship with the Legend, producing a child with him that would go on to become a hero known as Blarney Cock. She has also had a number of other children by unspecified fathers who were aborted by Dr. Peculiar. Most notably, Maeve was in a relationship with Homelander but broke up with him when he tricked her into having a blindfolded sex session with Black Noir and physically assaulted her when questioned about it. As a result, she never stood up to Homelander again due to her fear of him, and it also caused her to go along with some of his actions. But all this torture finally prompted her to work with the boys and help them by installing several bugs in the Seven's headquarters. Later, when Homelander went crazy and decided to kill the president, Maeve was also killed by him, while protecting Starlight from Homelander and Black Noir. He easily overpowered her after she struck him on the head with her sword. He then flung her decapitated head at Starlight as she flew away from the Seven's headquarters. Ultimately, Maeve's sacrifice bought enough time for Starlight to escape, and she also played a major role in Starlight's development into a great superhero. So, when it comes to Starlight, the Seven hired her to make up for the Lamplighter's absence. She has the ability to emit blinding light from her hands and also the ability to fly. When she first activated her powers, she accidentally permanently blinded her parents and the doctors present upon birth. Faced with an increased cost of living due to their disability, her parents were forced to give up custody of Annie to Vought. As a result, she was raised by foster parents and attended several superhero pageants as a child. Annie received no real love from her foster parents, as they viewed her as a show pony more than anything else and were only caring as long as she performed well in the pageants. Later, she joined the Seven after the death of previous member Lamplighter and left her previous superhero group Young Americans. She is quickly rattled after finding that her membership to the Seven comes at a high price: sexual activity with the male members. Similarly to the show, Starlight is coerced into performing oral sex on Homelander, Black Noir, and A-Train. She continues to be mistreated but gradually learns to stand up for herself, particularly in her interactions with A-Train. Shortly after joining the Seven, Starlight enters into a relationship with Huey Campbell, although neither of them are aware of the other's real profession. When Annie finally confesses to being a superhero, Huey is shocked and hurt. He considers resuming the relationship, but is further hurt when he is manipulated by Butcher into watching Starlight perform oral sex on members of the Seven. Without knowing the full context of what he just witnessed, Huey is furious and breaks up with Annie after insulting her. She later tracks Huey down to Orktoladel, his hometown, where the two are able to partially rekindle their relationship after he apologizes for insulting her. Their relationship remains strained, however, and Annie eventually leaves Huey due to him being unable to move past the events he witnessed. Despite this, the two rekindle their relationship at the end of the series, after the threat of Homelander is over. Over a decade later, Annie gets engaged with Huey and moves to Scotland. Over time, Annie notices Huey's behavior before discovering Huey has been secretly reading a journal of Billy Butcher, anonymously sent to him. Incensed for not having been told about the journal, Annie orders Huey to find the sender before leaving him alone. However, things are going great between them, and a few weeks later, Annie and Huey get married in Huey's hometown. Moving on, we have the Deep. He is known to the public as the King of the Seas. This guy is opposite to his show version. In comics, the Deep is the most mature, civilized member of the team and often bears the brunt of other characters' contempt, disregard, and racism. The Deep wears a green cape, along with bulky green gloves and, most jarringly, a large and outdated sea diving helmet. There's a glass window for the Deep to see out of and open to drink and eat from. Despite him being one of the more mature members of the Seven, he is not above lowering himself, as he, along with A-Train, Jack from Jupiter, and Black Noir, wanted to sexually assault Starlight. He is the only remaining original member of the Seven after the events in Washington, where he declined to take part in Homelander's attempted coup against the US government. He is later seen as part of a new team of superheroes that American Consolidated is attempting to create, called True. Stillwell identifies him immediately, as his new costume includes a large cone-shaped hood resembling a Klan hood, which still incorporates his helmet's porthole. So when it comes to Black Noir, he was always the clone of the Homelander and was created by Vought American with refined Compound V after Homelander was born. Vought created him as a contingency plan in order to ensure that Homelander never oversteps his bounds and kills him if he does. Black Noir then became a major member of the Seven, with no one on the team knowing who he was or where he came from. He doesn't appear or speak a lot due to the fact that he was mute for the majority of the comic. However, he managed to find Huey at some point and was responsible for sexually assaulting him in a sewer. Later on, Black Noir was stopped by Queen Maeve from forcing Starlight to wear her new and revealing costume. Eventually, Black Noir went insane due to not being able to complete the mission and being forced to reside and interact with his target. As a result, Black Noir decided to wear the Homelander's costume and commit vast atrocities such as cannibalizing children and murdering women, and during it all, he raped Billy Butcher's wife, Becky, which then led to her own death. In addition, Black Noir sent the boys photos of him committing the atrocities to incriminate Homelander and get Vought American to kill him. Homelander then tries to kill Black Noir in a rage but ends up failing. Despite overpowering Homelander, he was critically injured and was later brutally shot repeatedly by the military and Butcher, and killed when Billy ripped a chunk of his brain out after ripping his skull open with his crowbar. So yeah, this is what happened to all the members of the Seven in the Boys comics, and if you guys enjoyed the video, then make sure to get subscribed.